Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. I just thought I would make a mid-September update since I never really got through to do my end of August update. Um, and for those of you who follow me on social media, not that I'm there very often. I keep thinking I'll get better about it, and it just doesn't happen. I'm not a great fan of social media generally. I do tend to like Instagram better than I like other formats. I don't know why. I think it's probably because it's so visual. Um, Suffice it to say, it didn't happen. Things got busy. Things have been busy. I'm good. Things are okay. Um, and I should say too that last month, boy, I could not have said goodbye to August any faster um, than it was able to leave on its own. Frankly, um, one of the roughest months I've had all year for so many reasons. Not all of which I really feel comfortable saying too much about, in all honesty. Everything's fine with Tom. Actually, things with Tom have never been better, which is wonderful, wonderful. Um, and business related stuff has been growing. It's getting better. It was really my family of origin and just um, continuing the battle. And I guess I'll just name what the battle actually is. And it's really the battle to remain compassionate and loving while setting down boundaries, not tolerating any bullshit, and um, and still remaining compassionate and loving, and figuring out where I need to set those limits for myself really on a day to day basis. So yeah, for those of you out there who may be of the mindset or the opinion of wow, if my family of origin was causing so many problems, I would just walk away. Um, I've done that before, and not under the best of circumstances. It was not something that felt completely authentic. It was helpful for a short time, and I realized after that I would never really complete my own work on myself unless I was able to find a way to engage with my family of origin without it being um, really disgustingly painful, right? And destructive. So that has been my work, and it's been really, really, really gut wrenching hard work on a regular basis for the last 7 years since I moved back down to St. Louis. And I would say last month was among one of the worst months that I've had with my mom specifically in that time period. So, I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it there. Um, so that's the that's the bigger picture of it. I think it's safe to say that based on some of the things that happened, you know, any kind of um, any sort of idea that I may have held that some sort of progress was ever made, really, in terms of our relationship and how we manage it, um, it became really clear that that's not the case. It's not. I don't think she's capable of real change or shifting. I think she's someone, unfortunately, who tends to come from a place of how can I manipulate this to my advantage. So that's something I've always sort of suspected, but was willing to not hold too near and dear in order to find a way to just remain somewhat open-minded so that I could potentially heal things with her if that was possible. And I discussed this actually at one point online. I think it was all online with Carol from Practical Mystic Carol, and she made a point that really, really was helpful. And she'd said, it's not that you, basically what she'd said was, it's not that you failed at anything. It was more that, your willingness to continue to remain compassionate and loving over that time period was, really pretty remarkable. And, hold space for yourself and recognize that maybe the compassion that your mom needs now is to know that sometimes that walking away from things is the only way to, and, getting space from them is the only way for things to move forward. So it was really helpful to hear that. So yeah, and I have a lot of big decisions that I'm going to have to make around various things in my life based on some of the things that went down last month. So I may have space to kind of open up more about that as time goes forward. I'm sure I will have to. But yeah, so there was that. Then there was just finding out that my sister's godmother, Linda, we each have a godmother, and each of our godmothers adopted both of us as their godchildren. So neither of us has ever thought of one or the other of them as more one's godparent than, you know what I'm saying? So at any rate, officially, Linda is my sister's godmother. She's always been both our godmothers, just as Adele has. But Linda was diagnosed last month with Alzheimer's. So the shock of that was also something that kind of kept me quiet and away from social media more than I had intended, and brought up a lot of additional stuff with all of this. I don't remember. She was diagnosed in July or August. It was one of the two. Those 2 months of just kind of like, gelled together, and I barely remember either of them in specific detail, and yet the events are kind of crystal clear. So last month was a lot of dealing with the fallout of that and what we need to do, and figuring out how to move on. So lots. Suffice it to say, lots and lots and lots of stuff. So that's really the life update. Trying to think if there's anything else I should really update in the life update section of this. I mean, yeah. Oh, I did get to go and visit my best friend, who was in seminary with me back in Chicago, and it was really lovely. I got to see both of my goddaughters, which was really nice, Hannah and Fern. And they're amazing little kids, and I will say this, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm sure, as someone who's never had children, how do you guys do it? I don't know how people do it. I'm in awe. I'm in awe. It is so humbling and so just amazing. It's such an amazing, selfless act to be a parent, really be a parent. And I think it's just such an adjustment and kind of like a shock when you go into a living situation where you're staying in the home and there's not really a break, and you kind of get the immersion experience of being with small children and in their own environment, and it's really intense. And it's such an amazing practice of acceptance. My level of practice, of acceptance went up about 1,000,000% as a result of being in that environment, and it's really humbling. And it really kind of shifted my perspective of life and a lot of things in a way that I think was probably really necessary and helpful. So yeah. Okay, so now we'll say that's the official end of the life portion of the update. For the tarot portion of the update, I will say I have been working with probably since the end of August, I would say maybe the last 10 days of August, I realized I needed this deck. I've had it since May, and I had intended for a long time to do like a walkthrough or, you know, something. You know, I did an unboxing and first impressions that was excessively long, and I thought, I can't remember what happened to it, but anyway, it ended up on the cutting room floor somehow. And, you know, either through needing to free up space on the computer, I don't know. But it's an amazing deck, and I am thoroughly enjoying working with it. It is the Polarcos Tarot, and I am going to do, I have a couple of videos coming up that I filmed and just have not gotten anywhere with in terms of getting them uploaded yet. Even though my internet has been better. And it does a much faster, better job of uploading. But, you know, this is a remarkable deck. It's so beautiful and so unique. And she departs from traditional meanings here and there, and then she also, you know, reinterprets them. It's such a remarkable deck. I can't even begin to tell you. So, yeah. I do have some good walkthroughs of the deck and its structure coming up. I just have to get them like pulled together and uploaded. That's all. They've been filmed for a while. But this deck has been really amazing to work with. It's a beautiful deck for doing your own work and doing some kind of shadowy work. Has a very shamanic feel that's kind of channeled a little bit. And of course, I mean, this is a given. It works really well when it's paired with, you know, the first edition of the Marielle. So, well, that one's decided to go upside down. So the Marielle reads beautifully with the Polarcos, or Polarcos. It's, this is my trimmed first edition, obviously. So, yeah, I've continued to work with my first edition Marielle just because it's just the deck. It's the deck for me. It's my soul deck. We all know this. I think if you've watched the channel for any period of time, you know that already. But it's also just so honest and supportive at the same time, and it helps me kind of embrace my own darkness without feeling that it's anything but an asset. So, you know, actually interesting, 2 of my stalker cards from last month. 2 stalker cards from last month, interestingly there. So yeah. So this has been tremendous ally all the way through August. I think I was working with it through July, parts of July, half of July, maybe all of August, all of September so far. It's just what I need right now. And you know, I'm just pairing it with a new deck that's also really one that I want to get to know. But I'm also realizing I think the Polarcos is not one, at least right now, that I think I'll be using with clients. I think this one will just remain a deck that is, you know, one that I use for myself. It doesn't, oh, I love that. This is the card that sold me on this deck. Yeah, there's just something about it that really resonates. I think it would be fine to read for with clients. I just don't know that I want to use my own copy of it for that. You know, sometimes I'm finding it hard to read. We all do this, I think. It's hard to read for clients with certain decks, and then it's easier to work with others. So there we are. I've also, let's see, what other tarot decks? Oh, let's talk about this. So I've got a copy here of the second edition Marielle, which is really showing some hardcore wear and tear. That's where I learned that you don't ever spritz Florida water on a second edition of your Marielle. I don't know what happened. It's like the cards disintegrated and stuck together in a really strange fashion that I've never seen before. They won't tolerate They won't tolerate it. Not that that's a big problem. It does not stop me from working with or using the deck, but it definitely did like accelerate the wear and tear on this. This, I gotta be honest, the second edition is holding up physically a lot better than I would have anticipated. And I mean, I'm using it really, really heavily at the moment. Um, really heavily. Like, you know, throughout the day, most days, while I'm reading for clients um, and arranging readings and so on. And it's remarkable. I'm amazed. I'm really genuinely amazed. I've also learned a lot of the nuance. It's become my friend. This one has equally become my friend in the way that the first edition has. And I will say, too, that this one is also a lot more suited to working with clients. And I don't know how much of that was intended by Marie White, but really in terms of, you know, the first edition, you know, is great for your own personal work. Wonderful. But, you know, this is a really, I had not encountered with very many clients at the time I started reading professionally again, where this image, for example, would have presented an issue. Not just in terms of, you know, creepy babies and long fingers and all, and breastfeeding, you know, Hierophant in a church and so, you know, all of those things, right? But it was less that and more the interpretation. This particular Hierophant's interpretation is so vastly different than the second edition, which is a much more traditional Hierophant. And so all of the traditional, you know, meanings and things that we assign to the Hierophant become more available, possible, apparent, you know, during a reading with a client. And you need that energy, you know, when you're working with a client. Sometimes, you know, they really do come to you with very mundane, ordinary, everyday things. In one area of my work, I see very, you know, as a reader, I see very few querents that are and clients that are genuinely interested in spiritual growth. They're really wanting to know about very earthly things, and they're not interested in hearing much about what the spiritual implications of things are. And that's hard for me because to me that's integrated into everything I do. And I don't judge it because I get it. I mean, it's okay. It's really okay. But having this available as a replacement for this has made reading for clients and, you know, and because I just can't interpret. The visual is so different and the meaning for me is so different than this image. So I have stopped hating. Not that I ever hated it. I just struggled with it because I'm so in love and love with and attached to this particular image. You know, and this one is just so so different. But I have gone beyond making peace with that, and I've actually gone to the place of really genuinely appreciating it. I do appreciate what it brings into a reading and, you know, the ways in which it shapes a reading. Yeah. So as far as the other cards are concerned, again, the one I was the most irritated with originally was the Three of Swords. And my perspective on this one has also shifted. So, you know, I still feel like there are more possibilities in the Three of Swords, and I'm also really appreciative of the decks that I have, including the first edition, where the Three of Swords is not this image. And there is a particular type of clientele that I work with from time to time for whom this is just going to be the clearest answer. And when it shows up, they get it. And I don't have to do much interpretation for them to understand what the message is. And there's a lot to be said for that. You know, when a client can just look at the card, or they can look at the table and say, oh, okay, you know, it does a lot of the work for you. And I've also come up with some, more traditional interpretations of the High Priestess. So, the ones that I had, say, become more accustomed to from the Rider-Waite system, which are very immediate, and if you're working quickly, there's not a whole lot of guesswork involved. You just know. I do appreciate the flame and the lack of a face, because that has shifted its meaning and interpretation in readings a lot more than I would have expected. So this is like, it's kind of a bonus High Priestess, because of that flame inside of that space. The interpretations have opened up and shifted and become a lot easier to make specific within a particular reading in question, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's been useful. This Judgment card has not changed much for me in terms of interpretation. So another deck that I've also been working with the last couple of, mostly like the last couple of weeks, is the Indigo Alchemist Tarot again. And this one again is it's a wonderful deck to work with clients on. Yep, that's the way I want to go. It's a great 5 of Pence. It is a really immediate, accessible deck. Interpreting things is quick and simple. It is a fantastic deck for reading. This one came up last month once as a retirement. Yeah, it's been a really great deck to work with. This one's been brilliant working with clients, as has this one, this 8 of Cups. Frequently some of the clientele, I say that like all, it's really a small portion of it, but some of the clientele that I work with, feeling trapped and not yet ready to walk away from things, but yet searching to see if a way out might be possible, is a closer match to their personal experience. So yeah, that's been helpful. So yeah, so that's that's another deck that's come back. Another deck I'm really loving, loving is the Oracle de Reflets. So this is by Celia Melesville, and she is French, and it's just brilliant. This deck has turned out to be a lot earthier and yet spiritual. So it feels like the space where divination and fortune telling overlap, if that makes sense. So where you're looking for spiritual guidance and information about your life and situation, this is a great, just such a good deck for that. The readings that I've had with it are so accurate. This always reminds me of Boba Fett. But the readings are so accurate and so intelligent and versatile. Like the yin and yang on that rice bowl. I mean, that's so earthly and yet so spiritual. It's, there's just so much packed into this little deck, and so much possibility. And it seems to do beautifully. I can have a client that's coming from this space or a client that's coming from this space, and they will each get a really accurate reading from this deck. So I'm really pleased about that. It physically, the cards hold up really well to all of the shuffling. However, it is taking the gilding off. Apparently my right thumb is really the worst offender. The gilding was already a little, on the edges, or the edging was already a little chipped. And it's now like really, it's showing the wear. I mean, I do use them a lot, I will say. Like these get used virtually pretty much every day, more than once every day. And they undergo a lot of shuffling. And I think actually that said, they look pretty darn good, you know, for a deck that's undergone that amount of shuffling. But as much as I'm loving it and using it, look at that guy. It probably also would, I'd probably benefit from getting a backup copy if I can. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I will probably use them and treasure them until they're worn out. They're so freaking good. So that's that. And finally, where are we? Oh, goodness. I really have wanted to work with Lenormand for some time, and I have a walkthrough of this deck coming up that's filmed. I was just editing it when I got ready to make this video. And this is not a petite Lenormand. There's nothing about this deck that's petite. So this is, that's my hand. This is the Lunar Nomad Oracle. And it's basically, oh, here's the book. I've been keeping the book next to my desk so I can really read it. This is an oracle that's, it's, get it, Lunar Nomad, Lenormand. It's got that kind of feel, kind of like the Tarot de Maria Celia, Marseille, Marcella, yeah. You know what I mean? But that's kind of where he's going. Really nice, chunky book. And obviously there is not a traditionally a seer card in the Lenormand. But other than that, there's extra cards. You know, there's about 8 or 10 extra cards in this one. Yeah, familiar black cat. Ooh, with that wonderful spider. You know, it is such an evocative, beautifully made deck. Because I really have felt drawn to learning Lenormand. I love this mice card. It really, for me, the playfulness in this mice card, softens it for me, and it doesn't make it, it kind of helps, disperse the energy of that. Yeah, it's a much more, I don't know. Yeah, there's an extra. The heart card. Anyway, it's a really great deck. It's got several extras in it. Aura, that's another extra card. And it's definitely not a petite, it's huge. I think this is easily the biggest deck that I have. I've got very big hands. And the way that I end up shuffling this bad boy is generally like this. Because it will. So, yeah, that's that's generally how that one ends up going because of the size of it. But it's a really good way to learn Lenormand. I've had a couple of really kind of trios of cards come up for myself in the last couple of days, which is interesting because they haven't been that way. This is a super, we'll do mice because mice came up yesterday. And I think this one represented Tom more than me. He suffers a lot of stomach issues. As you can see, it'll tell you the traditional meaning up here at the top. So a great way to summarize this might be he brings in all possible spiritual solutions as well as the practical ones, and then kind of marries them together really beautifully. So, for example, the very end of this, he says, clarify your boundaries, own your space, internally and externally. You are the gatekeeper to your body, mind, and spirit. Before destructive intrusions enter your sanctuary, become explicit about whom or what you will invite into your space. So it's just things like that are peppered throughout that make reading with this deck and getting to know it wonderful, really wonderful. And it will ultimately, I know, it will deepen my understanding, of Lenormand in general. I wish it were smaller, and I wish it were better cardstock. Anyway, great deck, really great deck, published by Wiser Books. And you know, the book and the deck are the same, pretty much the same size, so you can see there. All right, guys. I hope everybody's well. Um, and thank you so much for your support and for watching and for hanging in there with me. Hopefully, I will get back to making like proper content again soon, at least to the point where I can actually upload it. Um, and in the meantime, I'm just rolling with it because that's all you can do. Sometimes that's really all you can do. All right. Love to everybody. Thank you again so, so, so much. This community has offered me so much support and love and friendship. It's, again, very humbling. Very, very humbling. So thank you. All right. Bye.